Welcome to an episode of Behind the Scenes, a weekly program unveiling the biggest political developments in Somali politics. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and co-producer here on HORUFADHI Media alongside Suleiman Hashi. On this week's program, after an eager wait for the Somali public and media, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud appoints Mr. Hamza Abdi Barre as the newly appointed Prime Minister of Somalia. What are some of the challenges facing the newly appointed Prime Minister as he takes over office during a period of difficulty, politically, environmentally, and other security challenges? This is the topic on the program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you can find exclusive programs such as our new program, the African Weekly Roundup, as well as Mahahi Salah, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Now, let's get straight into it. Following months of turmoil between Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and his President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, many Somalis were pleased to see relative political stability in Somalia following the election of President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud on the 15th of May 2022, irrespective of whether one supported a different candidate or not. For a month, Somalis and the Somalia media outlets frequently discussed who President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud would appoint as Prime Minister. Some looked towards Puntland following the major support thrown behind Hassan Sheikh during the election by Puntland leader and the then presidential candidate Said Abdullahi Deni. Deni was essentially leading in the first round of vote but would eventually transfer support to Hassan Sheikh to minimize the chances of a Farmajo victory. Some looked towards Galmudug, where pundits were highlighting Galmudug Vice President Ali Dahir Eid as a serious contender, while others suggested former ministers and political analysts. However, all these different types of predictions turned out to be far from the truth. The appointment made by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud came as a surprise to many analysts. On the 14th of June, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud appointed Hamza Abdi Barre as his Prime Minister. However, Mr. Hamza Abdi Barre is not exactly a household name or a familiar face to the Somali public and media. So who exactly is the Prime Minister appointed Hamza Abdi Barre? Hamza Abdi Barre hails from Kismaya, according to Villa Somalia. Mr. Barre is a scholar, researcher, and academic, having worked in various institutes, including Al Shahid Center for Research and Media Studies in Somalia and the International Islamic University in Malaysia. He holds an MBA in Management from the International Islamic University and a BA with a major in Management from the University of Science and Technology in Yemen. According to a short biography provided by Villa Somalia, Hamza Barre devoted his time to improving education in Somalia during the Civil War, particularly during the early 2000s, having served as the Secretary General of the former private education network between 2003 and 2004. He additionally co-founded Kismayo University, having served as the Deputy Director of Academic Affairs, also serving as the Deputy General and Senior Lecturer at Mogadishu University. He was recently elected as a Member of Parliament from the Somali federal state of Jubaland, having been elected on the 28th of December in 2021. Now, prior to this new role as Prime Minister and previously as MP, Hamza Barre served as the chairperson of the Jubaland Electoral Commission during the re-election of the current Jubaland President Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe in 2019. He also served as a senior managerial advisor to the Mogadishu Mayor between 2014 and 15, before going on to serve as a senior advisor to the Ministry of Constitutional Affairs between 2015 and 2019. Interestingly and quite strategically, the new Prime Minister and President Hassan Sheikh have a long and historic friendship going back over 2 decades. The two leaders worked closely together during their time in the education sector prior to politics, and years later, Hamza Abdi Barre would serve as the Secretary General of the now defunct Peace and Development Party, or PDP, between 2011 and 2017, a party founded and headed by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. PDP would eventually change its name to the Union for Peace and Development Party, or UPD, which is the current ruling party of Somalia. Therefore, what is evident is that there's a clear political and personal relationship between the president and the prime minister appointed that stems back a long time. They seem to share the same political outlook and vision on how Somalia can move forward, and this is a positive step for the president to consolidate his power in Villa Somalia and the government. The appointment of a loyal and important ally as prime minister would ensure a more stable government and reduce the chances of conflict between the heads of federal government, which has hindered and slows down the slow, heavy wheels of government, as we've seen during the presidency of Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in his first term and the presidency of Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, particularly during the latter years. What is clear is that the president seems to have learned from his previous mistakes in appointments of premiers. Conflict in government results in the following things. Number 1, an opportunity for Al-Shabaab to conduct counter-offensive and terrorist attacks. Number 2, opportunity for Somalia's enemies to exacerbate and add fuel to an already lit fire to create more political turmoil. And number 3, confidence in the Somali government is dramatically reduced internationally, which could in turn damage financial programs and stability, such as the debt relief program. The importance of a stable government is the bedrock for any kind of tangible improvements in Somalia over the next 4 years. A long-term solution remains the completion of a constitution and clearly outlining the defining powers of the Prime Minister and the President, which are currently in a grey area, or essentially removing the office of Prime Minister altogether. So how has the Somali political arena and public reacted to the appointment of Hamza Abdi Barre? Indeed, as aforementioned, many have highlighted the appointment of a close friend and ally of the incumbent president as a step towards a long-term political stability in the government over the next 4 years. The two have both political and personal relationships which go back over a decade. Close working relations and aligning beliefs translate to more smooth and effective delivery of government at the upper echelons of Somalia, which is currently really needed to make any changes in the current state of the country. However, some critics highlight the relationship between the newly elected Prime Minister and the controversial Jubaland leader Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe. Hamza Barre served as a chairman of the Jubaland Electoral Commission during the Jubaland state leadership elections in 2019, which showed the controversial re-election of Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe as president in Kismayo. The then Somali government led by Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo rejected the result of the election as rigged, whereas Kenya released a statement supporting the re-election of Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe. Many observers and analysts described the election in 2019 as both corrupt and rigged in favor of the incumbent leader, an election Hamza Barre was leading. However, it's important to see, as Barre served as the Secretary General of the ruling party under Hassan Sheikh throughout his first presidency between 2012 and 2017, including the period in which Hassan Sheikh and Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe clashed over Jubaland, we cannot confirm how the relationship was during that period. However, critics have cited the 2019 election as something to look at. Irrespective, behind the scenes cannot confirm whether Hamza Abdi Barre was directly involved in any kind of electioneering during the Jubaland leadership election in 2019. So, what are some of the immediate challenges facing the new Prime Minister? Number 1, unifying the country. Somalia currently remains heavily divided along political lines as supporters of the former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and supporters of the incumbent Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud continue to be at loggerheads. We've seen a civil war explode within the Somali National Security and Intelligence Agency as the new director Mahad Salad fires former officials and began harassing former employees, including his predecessor Fadi Yassin and former NISA Deputy Chief of Staff Abdullahi Kolane, a current MP, both key allies of the former president. We also see the continuation of hatred and distasteful online attacks between supporters of Nabadi Nolol, the party of the former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, as well as supporters of the incumbent president, which continue to sow division amongst Somalis in a time in which Somalis need to be united against major challenges, including security and ravaging droughts. The construction of a unifying government that is inclusive and serves the interests of Somali people is the only way to help the Prime Minister to build bridges and build a consensus. The second issue facing the Prime Minister is droughts and environmental disasters facing Somalia. According to experts, Somalia is facing its worst drought crisis in a decade, with millions of Somalis going hungry and being forced from their homes in search of food and water across parts of Somalia. We've seen dozens of IDP camps prop up across central and southern Somalia as more families flee the countryside due to a lack of food, water to feed their crops or to feed their wildlife. The drought kicked in during a difficult period for Somalia. Political instability coupled with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic economically has made Somalia's situation all the more dire. Even before the current drought, an estimated 7.7 million Somalis were in need of humanitarian assistance and protection this year, up by 30% from last year, according to Save the Children Somalia. And this is obviously as a direct result of political instability. This is a direct result of the Somali government having infighting, or the federal leaders that includes federal member states fighting amongst each other rather than having a coordinated response with both effective and transparency approach. Now, what the Prime Minister needs to do is replicate this replicate a coordinated response which is both effective and transparent. And this is exactly what is needed, coupled with a strategic long-term plan to deal with the continued famine crisis in Somalia. An example could be the Green Legacy Initiative seen in Ethiopia, which has seen hundreds of thousands of trees being planted across the country to counter the desertification crisis that has ravaged not just Ethiopia, but Somalia, Eritrea, Djibouti, and other regions in the Horn. And finally, the removal of Kenyan influence in Jubaland. Kenya continues to use Jubaland as a political tool to destabilize the federal government. Just recently, literally just a few weeks ago, we saw former militia leader Janan attempt to land at Beled Hawo, which was rejected by Gedo Regional administration, which also accused Janan of trying to bring a militia and to create issues in the region. Now, since the formation in 2011 of Jubaland, consecutive presidents from Sharif Sheikh Ahmed had faced political battles against the Kenyan-backed Jubaland leader Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe. It was in 2011 when Kenya illegally invaded Somalia under the pretext of a 48-hour operation to capture key Al-Shabaab leaders to quell the continued attacks by the militants. However, the intention of Kenya was always clear if one assesses the geopolitics of the region. For Kenya, the implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding, signed only 2 years earlier in 2009, with the Somali transitional government was essential to the prospective and lucrative oil block deals, as well as for Kenyan fishermen to continue to fish in Somali waters. Additionally, it was also within Kenya's interest to create a buffer state between itself and Somalia, which can guarantee its security. Nairobi has always been worried, particularly since 1963 in the Shifta War, about a strong Somali government in Mogadishu and its relations with the Somali people residing in the northeastern region of Kenya, formerly known as the Northern Frontier District. With the support of the Ras Kamboni Brigade, a Somali militia in the area led by Islamist Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe, the Kenyans captured the Somali coastal town of Kismayo in 2011, effectively propelling the new federal member state known as Jubaland and placing its key ally Ahmed Islam Madobe as its leader. And he has remained in power ever since, with Kenyan support throughout. The latest being his re-election in 2009, which was rejected by Mogadishu but supported by Nairobi. Aside from the lower Juba regions, Kenya continues to bomb the Gedo region, which has been a nuisance for Nairobi. Gedo Regional Administration continues to reject the rule of Ahmed Madobe and the presence of the KDF forces, and we've seen indiscriminate Kenyan air raids which continue to kill civilians, destroy private property in the region, and the Somali government continues to fail to address the issue. We saw some kind of addressing of the issue late 2020 when the Somali government sent national security forces to the Gedo region to prevent an attack by a militia led by the then Jubaland Security Minister Janan from the Kenyan side. And then let me make this very clear, from the Kenyan side, the Jubaland Security Minister attempted to attack Gedo, to Somalia and Beled Hawo, which was repelled by Somali security forces. So what is important is that this issue with Jubaland and Kenya needs to be resolved immediately, and that's the final issue that I would want to raise for the Prime Minister. I want to congratulate him in his new role and wish him all the most success in delivering on his mandate.